When you're alone.
I think I want to get out of this rat hole. I want to get online. I need a computer.
That sounds a lot like young people today. But instead of a computer, they're actually talking about their phone. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Cinema Psych Podcast, the podcast where psychology meets film. I'm your host, as always, Dr. Alex Swan, and in this episode, we are going to store some information in our brains. What? That's exactly what we do every day, Dr. Swan. What are you talking about? This is stuff we cannot access. Yes, we are talking about the exact movie from 1995 that delves straight into this, and that is Johnny Mnemonic. I kind of wanted to play that up a little bit. I really did, because this movie is goofy. This movie was an attempt to make Keanu Reeves in the mid-90s a blockbuster action star with a particular summer blockbuster movie that was action and a little bit sci-fi. Came out a year after Speed, and so studios were like, let's get Keanu. We'll fund your movie, get Keanu, and we'll make him a movie star. But I gotta say, this was not the vehicle for him becoming an action star. And honestly, it wasn't until The Matrix 4 years later that he actually got that label, I suppose. So let's talk about this movie. Johnny Mnemonic, as I said, came out in 1995, directed by Robert Longo. Now, you're probably not familiar with his credits because he didn't really do a lot. He directed some REM music videos and some shorts, but mostly this is his only feature film. I think we'll get into more about maybe the reasons why, or maybe he didn't like his experience with making the movie. Plenty of that to come probably at the end of this chat. The writer of the film is William Gibson. Now, interestingly, the movie was based on a short story also written by William Gibson. The short story came out in 1981. And he decided to write a screenplay for the story. And he struggled to get funding for this. And they wanted, and ultimately he found Robert Longo, who was known as an artist more than a filmmaker. But they wanted to sell this thing as an art film that was going to be, a small budget, kind of like an artsy film, still with the cyberpunk visuals, maybe the dystopian bit of it, but in any case, they didn't get any backers. But it wasn't until they went to Sony and were like, "Can we have money?" And they're like, "Well, you can have money, but you're gonna have to jazz it up quite a bit. Okay, you're gonna have to make this a blockbuster vehicle for Keanu Reeves." I mean, I'm shortening this story because honestly, we're talking about 10 years, maybe 15, but at least 5 years of Gibson trying to get this screenplay off the ground. He started writing in 1989. They started looking for backers, including Warner Brothers, in 1990. And then, of course, it took that many more years for the film to come out. The film stars, as I said, Keanu Reeves. He plays the titular character, Johnny Mnemonic, although Johnny Mnemonic is not named, is not the name given to or said by Keanu Reeves. He is basically only referred to as Johnny throughout the whole movie. It also stars Dina Meyer as a character named Jane, who is enhanced with technology made by Spider, Henry Rollins. Yes, that Henry Rollins, the lead singer of Black Flag, Rollins Band, State of Alert. Yeah, that guy, right? The film also stars Dolph Lundgren as Carl Honig, the street preacher, another enhanced human. Ice-T also appears in one of his earlier acting roles. I love the wordplay here. So he's Ice-T, right? And he's billed as Ice-T. And that was his rapper name, and is his rapper name. And it's also his stage name. But his character is J-Bone. And I love the juxtaposition there of Ice-T plays J-Bone. It's kind of funny. And then in a small role, but a character actor that I love so much, Udo Kier plays Ralphie, a middleman, broker, gets Johnny into this mess kind of guy, ends up getting murdered halfway through the movie. So, lovely character actor from Germany, has played a wonderful set of roles. If you don't know who Udo Kier is, go look him up. He's definitely in one of your favorite movies. All right, so what's going on in this movie? Well, this film is set, and we're going to definitely talk about this in 2021. Let that sink in for a little bit, because I already mentioned dystopian and cyberpunk. We get some on-screen texturation at the beginning of the film saying it's 2021, corporations have taken over. I mean, stop me when art is no longer imitating life here, or life is no longer imitating art. Either way, corporations have taken over. People are addicted to the internet, and they love all of their computers. There are really no countries anymore. It's either you live in a corporate-run city or you live in a free city. So we go between Beijing at the beginning of the film, which is a corporate-run city, to Newark. Yep, that Newark. Not New York City, Newark, as a free city, I guess, where some rules don't apply. Corporations don't have a bigger reach. Rules don't apply. Laws don't apply. I don't know. It's not really all that well established or explained. So we'll leave it at that. That's probably going to be an ongoing theme as we talk about this movie and its psychological concepts. A lot of half-baked ideas here. Granted, it came from a short story, so what are you going to do about that, right? There are a lot of cybernetic implants one can get. They can increase your speed. They can increase your strength. Johnny is a courier, but he's a special kind of courier because he has a neural implant that allows, like, literally jacking in. Like, this is 100% one of the inspirations for not only Keanu Reeves for The Matrix, but just The Matrix in and of itself. So he has this little, like, jack porthole behind his right ear that he can put a little 3.5 millimeter jack into and upload information to a separate part of his brain, although it is indicated to be wet wired. And they don't explain what wet wired means. So my assumption is that they do it, he's alive and he's awake while they do it, and it's just like wired to his brain or whatever. I don't know. It's, again, not well explained. He gets this job from Ralphie, and he has to carry a lot of information in his brain implant from one place to another, from Beijing to Newark. We find out later, spoiler alert, 30 years later, we find out later that he is carrying the cure for the other bit of backdrop to this film. Interestingly, does not appear in the short story, and that is neural attenuation syndrome, NAS. This is a problem that people have with their nervous systems, and it's caused by, and we're going to get into this quite a bit, but it's caused by electromagnetic radiation from all of the technology that exists in the world. And so it's degenerative. It gets worse over time, and there's no cure. But we find out later that Johnny is carrying the cure in his head, but is being set up by the Yakuza, because the Yakuza, as an organized crime syndicate from Japan, they want to prevent this cure from getting out because, I don't know, corporations like the more expensive treatment. Listen, the idea from Gibson and Longo was more or less ironic. Like, they wanted to make a movie full of irony, but the studio, Sony, decided, nah, we're not going to do that. We are going to cut this into an action flick. And it didn't do so hot in the box office. It didn't do so hot at all. The movie itself is about an hour and a half, maybe a little bit more than that. A slightly longer movie appeared in Japan. It featured more of the Japanese character that runs that runs the corporation that is treating NAS, but hires the Yakuza to get back Johnny's head. More scenes with him. That was released in Japan. But it wasn't until 2022 that a black and white version was released that Robert Longo characterized as closer to his original vision. So you can buy that version, Johnny Mnemonic in black and white, on Blu-ray. Sony released it on Blu-ray because Robert Longo said to Sony, I'm going to release my version of the movie on YouTube. And I'm just letting you know that I'm doing that. And they're like, well, wait a minute. Why don't we do this as a 30-ish year release? And he said, okay. And there we go. That's where we have this black and white version. I don't know if you can get it online. I don't know. I haven't looked, but I don't think you can get it online. You have to get the Blu-ray. Now, of course, you could say 7 Cs and look for it. But in fact, yeah, it might be more difficult. If you want to get it legally, then you're going to have to get the Blu-ray, right? So let's explore why this movie is, what this movie is, talk about the fact that Mnemonic, a memory device, is in the title. So we're obviously going to talk about memory. And then what's the deal with NAS, nerve attenuation syndrome? What's the deal? So let's jump in to Johnny Mnemonic. My guest host today is Dr. Celeste Pilegard. Celeste is an associate teaching professor at the University of California, San Diego, and specializes in the cognitive aspects of educational psychology. She returns for her long-awaited second appearance. I think this is the largest break between first and second appearance. I just want you to have that honor, Celeste. She joined us back at the very, very start of the show in 2020 in episode 11, folks, where we were discussing, among other things, the Rashomon effect, with my first dual film discussion of the film Rashomon and more contemporary Knives Out. Celeste, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back, Alex. You know, the last time we did this, I think the episode came out and then COVID shutdown started the next day. So really looking forward to see what global impact we have this time around.
Yes. Ooh. Should we place our wagers?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to say World War III. You go.
Cool. I'm going to say, let's be on theme today, some kind of tech dystopia.
Oh, yes. I mean, it would be well timed, right? Because the movie is placed in 2021. So
good year.
A great year. For so many reasons that when I rewatched this movie, I was like, oh, God. Oh, why?
Can I add to your introduction, real life friend?
Real life friend, yes.
That's right.
You might, listener, notice that as we talk in this episode, and if you want to go back to the sort of the poorer audio quality of episode 11, we've grown as a show. But if you want to go back, you might know or notice that Celeste and I shared an office in graduate school for a while.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But for those deep in the cinema psych lore, you'll remember.
Go somebody make a Wikipedia page, please. And just add that there. That's the only tidbit that needs to be in for Celeste's guest appearances.
I think it's a really important tidbit.
It is. So Celeste, I'm so glad that you are back on the show. And before we get into the meat and potatoes of Johnny Mnemonic, how is your fall term going?
Good. Thank you for asking.
Mm-hmm.
I am feeling optimistic Listen, hot take.
Okay.
In fall 2025,
Mhm.
I'm feeling a little bit optimistic about higher education. I feel like the students have been doing well. I feel
Okay.
really good about like COVID recovery.
Okay.
I feel like the students this year, even though I have a big class of freshmen, they seem like ready for college in a way that had maybe been a little bit lacking in previous years. And yeah, I had been having some exams that are going a little bit better than they had been in previous years. Like seeing those
Okay.
numbers creep up. I'm
I
feeling
like to
pretty
hear that.
good. Yeah. I mean, like very understandably in the previous years where like when you didn't have those critical high school years learning how to do college level things and you're having to learn them in real time in
Right.
college. Yeah, I think those students got there eventually, but these students feel like they're kind of starting off a little bit more ready, and that's nice. I'm happy for them.
Yeah, very good. I don't know if I have the same level of optimism, but I'm glad that I am hearing from a colleague that is different from what is sort of the narrative right now. So that's good. I will bask in your optimism here.
There you go. You might be catching me on a good night.
Yeah. What classes are you teaching this quarter as UCSD is on the quarter system?
That's
For
right.
those who don't know, 10-week terms.
Super fast. Yeah. So I'm teaching Introduction to Cognitive Psychology, which is a general education course. So a lot of non-majors, no prereqs.
Good.
Does not actually count for the psych major.
That's
so it's kind of fun because it has like no consequences. I can just teach people about how the mind works the way that I want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then research methods in psychology, which is all psych majors. And and I teach that. I teach both of those about twice every year. Because
the quarter system is 3 terms in a given academic year, as opposed to semesters being 2 terms within an academic year. Yeah.
Right.
Ooh, boy.
Naturally, as we all know, quarters are a division of 3. And that is why. Nobody can explain this to me.
No, I think somebody was like, let's divide the year into 4 parts. But students only go to 3 of those 4 parts.
Yeah.
But we'll still keep
the fourth quarter is my uncompensated summertime.
Right. Yeah. You get a 9-month contract. See you later for that fourth quarter. Yeah, absolutely. So Johnny Mnemonic brings us together today.
That's right.
And you had texted me a couple of months ago and you were like, I'm about to see Johnny Mnemonic. Have you seen it?
That's right.
And I said, yeah, a long time ago.
Right.
But I didn't know, the basics that Johnny, played by Keanu Reeves, stores information in his brain. But I didn't really remember the story after that. So I'm glad that we're here talking about it because I got to watch it again to refresh my memory. And boy, oh boy, is it a perfect movie for this show? For 2 reasons.
Right.
For 2 reasons. And I'll let you jump in here in a second. But my 2 reasons here are it is such a strange film with so much background and lore associated with it that we can't not talk about it. And then 2, it's got some really approachable psych stuff. Not well portrayed, of course, but that's the beauty of some of these movies. Like I always come back to The Well for these kinds of things with Lucy and it being a really bad biopsychology film. But that's useful to show when movies, try as they might, get things wrong all the time, But what was your thinking in bringing this to the show?
Well, I obviously thought of you when I saw it because I've known you for a long time. I've known that you're a movie buff. And I am so honored that I get to come on your podcast today and talk about your favorite movie of all time, because you always would say that your favorite movie of all time was this 1990s sci-fi action adventure movie starring Keanu Reeves about the powers that be exploiting the neural resources of an underclass. And then Keanu has to fight against those powers by joining with an underground resistance force and also their incredible cyberpunk aesthetics. That's how you always described your favorite movie. And I was so excited to finally see Johnny Mnemonic.
Oh, yeah. I think you may have gotten that one a little off.
But yeah, I've been doing something this year with my husband, which is that we do like a movie night approximately every week. And we have been going month by month this year through a different year in the 90s, only picking movies from that year. And so it's been nice because we're both like children of the 80s who saw a bunch of movie covers of Blockbuster in the 90s, and now we're going back and trying to watch all of them. And so it was nice to get Johnny Mnemonic out of the way because it's a movie I'd wondered about for a long time because it sure sounded like a movie about memory. Got mnemonic right in the title. I thought, maybe I'm somehow stealing something from my students by not recommending
you
this
are
film to
stealing
them or
something.
working it into my lectures. And
Oh,
now we
yeah.
get to really dig into how well they did in terms of portraying how memory works in this film.
So was this your first time seeing it?
This was my first time seeing it. Yeah.
Okay. It was absolutely. So when I first joined Netflix in the mid 2000s, and I was getting like 5 discs at a time, it was in that mix very early on in the subscription. So I had seen it 20 years ago, and then you texted me about it, and I was like, yeah, I just saw it. It's been a couple of decades now. Since seeing it last, as I said, and I was like, oh, duh. Okay, let's do this. So before we jump into the psych stuff, what did you think about the movie in general? Like acting, plot, story, as you said, aesthetics, the cyberpunk quality of it all.
It looked cool.
For the 90s, I suppose.
For the night, it was doing a thing. It had a point of view. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it is hard not to compare the movie to The Matrix.
It really
because
is.
it's just a few years ahead of time, and it shares almost every surface feature with The Matrix. And that's tough if that's going to be the thing that people have in mind when they're thinking about it. And like, The Matrix has these incredible visuals and the like bullet time thing.
Yeah.
And Johnny Mnemonic is doing like some fun practical effects and some fun costumes, and they're kind of doing their best, and it looks super campy. And it's not the number one deployment of Keanu Reeves, in my personal opinion.
No.
But I thought it was fun. I thought it was a fun watch. I don't regret watching it. I don't know that I'm going to buy a copy.
Yeah.
But was happy to get the experience. What did you think on this rewatch?
Being 20 years older and not being a young man anymore, I thought the movie was a lot cooler probably back then than I did. Sure. and even though the movie came out 4 years before The Matrix, I saw The Matrix about 6 years before I saw this movie. So it was hard, as you say, not to compare it, even though audiences at the time had 4 years that was the Keanu Reeves dystopian future thing, as you described, bringing it up, right? But I'm watching it again, and I'm like, man, this is just Keanu Reeves learning how to act in another movie. He's just
it's nice to get on the job training.
Yes, it is, because he did Speed just a year before, and he's very wooden in that movie.
I also saw Speed this year.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about.
Break. I'm doing the whole tour, I guess.
Yeah, apparently.
90s, yeah.
I am an FBI agent. So you know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
In sort of the middle to later third of the movie, he's Johnny Mnemonic is just having a freak out because he's hanging out with the low techs, who are an allegory for poor individuals, corporate run world, and he's crying out that he wants a hotel room with room service, and it's like, wow, did you learn how to act yesterday?
What the is going on?
What the is going on?
You know, all my life, I've been careful to stay in my own corner. Looking out for number one, no complications. Now suddenly, I'm responsible for the entire world. And everybody and his mother is trying to kill me if my head doesn't blow up first.
Maybe it's not just about you anymore.
Listen. You listen to me. You see that city over there? That's where I'm supposed to be. Not down here with the dogs and the garbage and the fucking last month's newspapers blowing back and forth. I've had it with them. I've had it with you. I've had it with all this. I want room service! I want the club sandwich. I want the cold Mexican beer. I want a $10,000 a night hooker. I want my shirts laundered. Like they do at the Imperial Hotel in Tokyo.
I want room service. That's my
Wow.
impression, and I don't think that's
You know,
very
you
far
got a good
off.
Keanu.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, it's not hard. Let's be honest. That's why he did the John Wick movies. He probably stipulated in his contract, listen, I don't really want to say much. I just
There you
want to
go.
do the shoot, shoot, bang, bang fight thing.
He knows his strengths.
Yeah, he knows his strengths. Although I will say it was very useful when he was in Toy Story 4 as the Evel Knievel parody. And I can't think of his name
Realizing
now.
I've still not seen Toy Story 4.
Okay, well if you're doing year by year, it's going to be a while till you catch up to
Yeah.
that one. Oh, with that in mind, I did like the aesthetic. So cyberpunk movies always get me because I'm always thinking, what's the inciting incident in like the culture shift? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because so in some ways, some movies will explain like there was a big catastrophe or there was a nuclear war or something like that where culture has to like sort of restart, right? We don't get we don't get that background information here. Just time just keeps progressing and people just get dirtier and
Right.
more leathery.
Sure. There is some kind of pandemic of, what do they call it? What is it? There's an acronym.
Nerve attenuation syndrome, NAS.
Nerve attenuation syndrome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That seems tough.
It does seem tough. I don't know. Does it cause you to like just want to be wearing black all day and draw
Yeah.
lines on your face?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think that's it.
I liked it. Now, the movie as a whole, no, it's bad. It's one of those, it's borderline going on bad, so bad that it's good that you kind of have to take a step back and be like, that's not a terrible film because it has its moments, but it's a pretty bad movie. It's like,
yeah. I think it's a movie to watch while you're like, there are movies that I want to watch in a quiet room and I don't want to talk about it until they're over. And there are movies that I want to be watching with like the lights on and making jokes about it the whole time.
Yeah.
And I think that this is one of those.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think with that said, we can jump into the psych portion of the show. And I think our first segment here is definitely useful for not only the title of the movie, Mnemonic, but just the, I guess, MacGuffin, if you will, the idea that you can store other people's information, data, like a hard drive in your brain.
When the counter approaches 0, click on 3 frames off the TV. Any 3. They'll meld with the data and I won't know what they are. That's a download code. You get a hard copy. You fax 1 copy to your connection on the other side. When I get there, we feed in the code and download. Understand? Upload begins when you press here.
Who's the target?
Scientists, Farmcom R&D people, defectors.
Hit me.
Mr. Smith?
Where's the bathroom?
What?
The toilet.
Destroy the original!
Fax the images to Newark.
So I want to first ask you, Celeste, what does the title Mnemonic mean to you with respect to this film?
Yeah, good question. I this is, as I mentioned, this was the reason why I thought maybe this will be something psychology relevant. It was the reason I initially thought, oh, great, I can text Alex about this. And because I teach cognitive psychology, I teach about what I call mnemonics. And mnemonics, coming from a Greek root meaning something to do with memory, are these set of strategies that people use in order to facilitate memorization. These strategies that you can get good at in order to memorize things well.
Yeah.
And so I think that my guess about what Johnny Mnemonic was going to be about before I saw it was like some kind of memory champion or memory whiz. Because they're like these memory championships.
Yeah.
You remember this book, Moonwalking with Einstein?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this book that came out, I don't know, more than 15 years ago now, maybe 20 years ago now.
Yes.
This journalist, Joshua Foer, who went to the National Memory Championships to report on these people with incredible memories, to learn what's it like to live with an incredible memory. And he's interviewing these people there who are winning these memory competitions, who are doing stuff like being given, 1,000 digits in a row and repeating them back. And they're all like, oh, dude, we don't have incredible memories.
Yeah, right.
We have extremely normal memories. We just learn these strategies and we get really good at them and it makes us good at these tasks.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, that can't be true. And so he was like, I'm going to try to learn these strategies to see what this actually does. Because I know I don't think of myself as having a good memory. And so I'm going to see how well I can do if I try to learn these. And he goes back to the National Memory Championship the next year and wins.
Which is wild, right?
Which is wild. And he did this through the power of mnemonics.
So what are some of these strategies?
Yeah, so a mnemonic strategy, the reason they have this Greek name is because a lot of them originate in ancient Athens.
Okay.
In ancient Athens, this is like Socrates era. At the time, there was this kind of public virtue, or like there was a virtue in memorizing things, that like an idea that made, like if you'd memorized something, you had incorporated it into yourself and it became a part of you in some way. And so people were really interested in memorizing things. As a part of this, there's kind of a cute old technology story, which is that there were people that were skeptical about the written word in ancient Athens who were like, we can't be writing stuff down because then everybody's going to stop memorizing stuff and we're all going to become worse.
Yeah.
Nobody will memorize anything anymore if we start writing stuff down. And so they would do these things that are often familiar to people where you're like creating like an acoustic link and an imagery link between words, for example. So like if I'm trying to remember foreign language vocabulary words, and I want to remember that the Spanish word for letter is carta. And what I could do is be like, well, carta sounds like cart. And so I'm going to imagine a cart filled with letters. And so now I've created this imagery link between a cart and letters.
Nice.
And this acoustic link between cart and carta. And now when I see the word carta, I will think cart, letters. Carta means letters. Or if I try to think of letters, I'm like, oh yeah, the letters were in a cart, carta.
Excellent.
And so it's using these little like imagery or acoustic tools, even just things like using an acronym to memorize something would be an example of a mnemonic strategy. And like these little tools that we can learn to help us memorize things. And they tend to be like super useful. They tend to last a long time. They're obviously kind of slow. So you don't want to like learn an entire language through creating this like complex system of images.
Yeah.
But they can be really powerful in the right applications. But it turns out that is not, I didn't see a single mnemonic used in the movie. Did you?
Right. No, I did not either. No, there were no memory palaces or the method of loci. There was no peg word technique like you just described. There was none of it.
None of it. Absolutely not. Yeah.
I think Gibson, the writer of the short story and the screenplay, just really liked the word mnemonic.
It honestly, I love the title. I love to say Johnny Mnemonic.
It flows.
I'm going to name a fish Johnny Mnemonic.
It comes off the tongue.
That's great.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
But there are some memory things in this movie, though, right?
That's right.
So
That's right.
we have a couple of memory things that we can discuss. And I think with mnemonic, I think it would probably be a good idea to just sort of bend that into what a mnemonic is useful for, which is long-term memory. So Celeste, what is long-term memory?
Thank you for asking. Long-term memory. That's where we hold, what do you got back there? All your facts, concepts, beliefs, strategies, procedures, anything that you know but are not actively thinking about. All of your latent knowledge just sitting back there.
Sitting back there for what appears to be your entire life.
Yeah. Hopefully.
I mean, unless you want to, talk about Inside Out and the pit of forgetting where Bing Bong goes to die. I mean,
that's what happens, right? That's real.
Yes. You have a deep, dark crevasse in your brain where things go to be forgotten forever.
Great. Good.
That's not scary, right? What's going to go there? Oh my God. For the longest time and still today, we as I'm going to group us into the big group of cognitive psychologists. We believe that there is no known limit to the information, and then there is no end date except for your own expiration date.
Right.
And it's really just a problem of retrieving, which brings up an important plot point. Johnny says to more than one person, but really Jane, Dina Meyer, he says that part of the deal that he made to get this implant in his brain was that he had to get rid of some of his memories. So he got rid of his childhood memories.
You fit all that in your head anyway. Must have been pretty good at memorizing, huh?
Implant. Wet wire. I had to dump a chunk of long-term memory.
You had to dump a chunk of what?
My childhood.
Your childhood. Really? All of it. You can't remember a thing.
Maybe there's some residual traces. Every now and then there's something, but I can never hold on to it.
That's a seriously weird-ass thing to do.
Yeah, well, maybe I didn't lose anything I wanted to keep. I needed the space for the job.
Is this actually possible?
That we can pick new, like, I would rather remember how to make sourdough bread than I would like to remember the girl that was mean to me on the bus in middle school. And so can I...
And you still... And
electively, I will not name her on this podcast.
Okay,
but,
that's fair.
Right. Yeah, good question. So like, yeah, as you say, the whole thing with long-term memory is that it is unlimited. There's no reason why Johnny should have to forget something that he used to know in order to learn new things. Of course, Johnny's not going through a traditional learning process. He's doing this kind of upload process into his brain. But like, in terms of how our long-term memory works, knowing stuff ought to only make it easier to learn new stuff. There's no evidence that we like run out of space or that we become hindered by our knowledge, but that instead we become only facilitated by our knowledge. That knowing stuff means that like, now I have a lot more prior knowledge I can draw on to help me make sense of the new things I'm going to encounter in the world. And so there shouldn't be like that kind of need for replacement. You know, there is research on like trying to forget stuff on purpose. And it's not clear always exactly, like there's stuff that's in the lab, like a lot of this kind of research on like can old memories either be willfully or otherwise pushed away such that they no longer are memories. Like the stuff that you can do in the lab are these things like there's this directed forgetting paradigm that people will use where you like give people 2 lists of words and then you're like, hey, you know what, you can actually forget that one list. And then when you test them later, they actually remember it less well. That it seems like there might be a little bit of like directed suppression that we can do of memories. And then there's also like this kind of separate idea that when you have like a stored memory, that you can kind of suppress cues around it to avoid thinking about it, which isn't necessarily the same thing as not having the memory anymore. It means like kind of strategically avoiding things that would cause you to recall the memory. Right. But that with the appropriate cues, that memory is probably still available.
And could come barreling back if you were tired, under heavy cognitive load, which we'll come to we'll come to that in a second. Or any other sort of debilitating situation, right? Like a lot of our memory processes are not available to us, which I think is kind of ironic considering that the title is Mnemonic, which is a fully self-directed memory activity.
Yeah,
right.
Good point.
And it's voluntary, where many of our memory processes are involuntary and we have no control over them, which I think is an interesting juxtaposition that just occurred to me right now. And I'll be fully transparent that sometimes when we talk about these movies and the psych stuff, things just occur to me as we're talking about them. But I did want to bring back, so you're saying that there are ways in which memories can be suppressed, and maybe that's some of what is happening in this movie. But I want to go a little bit further with the plot, and this implant that Johnny has is inaccessible And it's inaccessible for a reason, right? Because he's supposed to be this high-level courier, and just like couriers are supposed to be, like they're supposed to be discreet, right? So why can't he access the memories in this chip in his brain?
So the memories are encrypted in the way that they're stored.
Mhm.
You've seen the movie a little bit more recently than I have.
Okay.
Can you explain the encryption process?
Yeah, so what we see in the beginning of the movie when Johnny is talking to these scientists that have the cure for NAS, he uploads the data into his chip, and while that's going on, he's like watching like TV on like super fast forward. And connected to the visor is this like button. And so when one of the scientists clicks a button, that creates 1 image imprint. And then they do it 2 more times for 3 image imprints. And that sequence of images in that order is how you get the data out of his head.
Right.
So,
and that's how we remember stuff too, right?
Exactly. I mean, let's be honest. There's a lot of visual stuff these days, right? So, I mean, what do you make of that with our understanding of memory processes? Why can't he access these memories though? Even though they're encrypted, why can't he gain access?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm going to be honest. I don't think that this part is real in terms of how memory works.
Oh, that's a bummer.
I know. I'm so sorry. I know that you're learning about these things for the first time.
Yep.
You're so disappointed.
I am.
Yeah. So like, I don't think it's true that we can have memories that we're storing in long-term knowledge that I don't think you could store an encrypted memory in somebody's mind, because generally storing memories requires like attention and like making sense of the situation and a lot of top-down processing. And so the idea of anything being kind of like passively put back there in a way that would be inaccessible to us is, just sort of outside the bounds of how real life memories are formed, of course.
Yeah.
But there is a little bit of a fun metaphor to the way that we need the appropriate cues in order to recall stuff.
Okay.
That like we do experience forgetting.
Right.
Where we will, like, if you think of forgetting as meaning not being able to access a memory that you're trying to access, you can have the experience of not being able to access a memory you're trying to access in one moment, and then in some other situation, the memory becomes accessible. This happens to us in like super like simple everyday situations when you are in your bedroom and you remember that you need to get the mail from the kitchen.
Yep.
And then you go to the kitchen and you can't remember why you're there.
Right.
And then you go back to your bedroom and you're like, oh yeah, the mail. Yeah, right. And so what's happening there is you had this moment of a memory being inaccessible to you when you were initially in the kitchen and having to go back to the bedroom, and then the memory becoming accessible. That memory was not encrypted, but there was some kind of cue that made you think of needing the mail in the bedroom. Maybe you were remembering that you needed to pay a bill for something that's in there. And then you go and you and then you go into the kitchen. That cue is no longer available to you. There are all these other things that are there available to you in the kitchen, and none of them are telling you why you're there until you go back to the bedroom. And this can happen over incredibly long time periods where you could have an experience like thinking that you don't really have any memories from when you were in kindergarten because you went to some school for just a year and then you left and you don't really remember anything there.
Right.
And then if you go back by that school, suddenly it's like, oh, I remember this friend that I had. And I remember this time my teacher was nice to me, because these cues become available to you again. And so like, in a way, seeing your old playground is doing something kind of similar in that it's making a memory accessible, as these decryption videos are doing in Johnny Mnemonic.
Yeah.
And that is like a pretty regular way that our recall works.
I think that works to explain how our memories work and the cues themselves in Johnny Mnemonic. But I think, as you rightly said, it is a situation where real life science stuff meets science fiction stuff, and the metaphor that the brain is a computer with a hard drive where things are stored and can be pulled from, that's where it sort of falls apart.
Right. Yeah. The brain is much less a computer and much more some kind of prediction machine, where it's always like the brain is lovely because it's always trying to help us out. You see there are all of these different themes in cognitive psychology where we have these processes going on where our brain's kind of trying to predict what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And so it does all of these friendly things, like while you're in the kitchen, it is easier to remember how to cook than it is to remember when you're elsewhere, because your brain cues up all of your cooking knowledge when you're around the kitchen.
Right.
And so, we always have these kinds of things happening, but it is, less of this kind of like neutral computational device that we think of a traditional computer as being.
Yeah. On that computer note, I have a question for you. Do you think, with our current understanding of both silicon-based chips and that whole world of computing and the brain, right, being wetware, if you will, do you think
gross?
I know, right? Do you think that we will, maybe not in our own lifetimes, but we will, or at least if the singularity happens within our lifetime, be able to partition a brain somewhat like in Johnny Mnemonic?
Oh, well, I guess you could, slice up that corpus callosum. We've already partitioned brains. You got that big tract of neurons going down the middle.
Mm-hmm.
You just do a little cut.
Just a little cut.
A little cut. I got to say, the effect is less dramatic than what you see in Johnny Mnemonic. The partitioning is much more like if you give people these weird little contrived tasks that Mike Gazzaniga invented, then you can detect that there's something wrong with them. And otherwise, they are remarkably normal. And that's really cool. I think that's nice.
It is. It is. And I will never stop talking about split brains at all levels to my students because they are so fascinating.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I don't know. Are you thinking we can partition a brain?
So my understanding from a sort of cognitive neuroscience perspective is that, and this is the ever-present search of what Lashley called the engram, right? Where we're trying to find the literal aspects of a memory in the brain, right? Mm-hmm. So if we can figure that out, why not? Why can't we? Why wouldn't we be able to? Maybe they did in the year 2015, and we're just, and so we're setting 6 years later, right? And we're just, we're behind the curve here.
That's right.
That's all I'm saying, right? That's because if we could partition a hard drive, then you could have partition a hard drive. If we could partition a brain, like a hard drive, that's what I meant to say. Mm-hmm. Then we could take all of the bad stuff and put it on in one part, right? We could put all of the sensitive stuff in the one part.
Okay, well now I'm into it.
Yes, but then ethical issues, right, with that kind of thing, which is why Johnny is sort of extra legal. This data courier.
Do you think that they had IRB approval?
No, absolutely not.
Interesting. Yeah.
So the backdrop, as I explained in the intro, is that corporations have taken over. Celeste, when has a corporation ever put a human's best interest in front of profits?
No, I'm feeling really good about the future. Listen, as long as we have the Department of Health and Human Services setting regulations about our institutional review boards, I think we'll be just fine.
Oh, boy. Yeah. I don't. So they definitely didn't have IRB approval. The Yakuza trying to, cut his head off for the data inside of his head.
Yeah.
I think we're well past the ethical boundaries.
Yeah, my IRB has follow-up questions when I'm like, I'm going to show people a science lesson and see how much they learned.
Right. I don't think you should do that, Celeste, is what they'll say. I don't think you should do that. I think that might be damaging.
That lesson. Yeah.
I think they might be irreparably harmed from doing that.
Right.
Learning science. Get out of here, Pilegard. Get out of here. On the other side of memory, we've got the stuff we work with on a moment-to-moment basis, not a day-to-day basis, a moment-to-moment basis, and that is working memory.
That's right.
Celeste, what is working memory?
Thank you for asking. So we've got our long-term memory, all the stuff we know, working memory, everything that we're actively thinking about. Mm-hmm. The important thing to know about working memory, if I can share one important fact about working memory is that it, in contrast to long-term memory, is limited in capacity. We can only think about so much stuff at once. It is quite easy to get overloaded.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because there's a lot of stuff we've got to do in working memory. Working memory is the mind's workspace. It is where we process all of the incoming information when we are trying to learn new things. It is where we are, selecting what's most important to pay attention to, organizing it into some coherent mental model, maybe queuing up the appropriate long-term knowledge to make sense of that new information. All this stuff has to happen there. And so it's really, and it's very limited in capacity. And so this is why, our students have unlimited capacity in their long-term memory. And yet they can go to one of our lectures, spend the whole time there attempting to pay attention, and then leave and not remember everything that we said.
Of course not.
They had the space in long-term memory.
Right.
Why didn't they remember it? And it's because of this bottleneck in working memory, because of all this processing that has to happen there. And so this is the thing where I was excited in Johnny Mnemonic because he keeps talking about his mind is overloaded.
Yeah.
Which is a thing that comes up a lot in my neck of the woods in terms of research on instructional design. There's a lot of concern about overloading students' minds by giving them too much information too fast or irrelevant information.
Right.
And this is the place where the mental overload idea is much more real.
Now, would you say that the way that it's framed in the movie as a function of storage size, 80 gigabytes, 160 gigabytes, 320 gigabytes, is a relevant metaphor for working memory?
Yeah. So the particular amount of stuff that we can hold becomes a relevant question in working memory. It's one of the first real empirical questions when people started studying, when they identified that we have this limited capacity short-term memory system and started doing research on it. One of the first areas of inquiry was cool, how much stuff can we hold? And it was relevant for decisions that were being made about how long can we let phone numbers get in the middle of the 20th century and stuff like that. And so you get this landmark paper by George Miller that tries to very influentially put the number on how much stuff we can hold at once. And that number is the magical number 7 plus or minus 2. So nowhere near any gigabytes.
Right.
We are in a single digit domain of what we can hold, which is not so impressive. A lot of what he was doing research on was stuff like, how many digits can you remember? How many letters can you remember?
Yeah.
There are people doing stuff at the time. How many chess pieces can you remember the location of? And the amazing thing is people have not stopped asking this question of how many things. No, it's now 4 plus or minus 1 is where the latest research seems to be. So it's funny because, so it's probably less because when you're dealing with things we're familiar with digits and letters. And so when you're dealing with something that is truly novel, the number is probably more 4 plus or minus 1, whatever.
Yeah.
The reason why I kind of don't care about what the real number is because most of the time, when we're thinking about things in the real world, when we're not just being given lists of random digits or random numbers or whatever, most of the time we are wielding kind of simultaneously our working memory and our long-term memory. We're using our long-term memory to expand the capacity of what we can think about. And this is something that was identified as early as Chase and Simon stuff with chess experts, where if you show normal people a random flash of a chessboard and then tell them reconstruct the chessboard, normal people remember 4 chess pieces.
Right.
But if you show a chess expert a flash of a chessboard, they remember 16, 20, 22 pieces, which is crazy. And in the middle of the 20th century, when this research was happening, everybody was obsessed with chess because everybody was obsessed with the Cold War. And everybody thought if we win at chess, maybe we'll also win the Cold War.
And it was weird.
You really have to interpret everything that happened in the last century through the lens of America being obsessed with winning the Cold War.
That's very true.
And super the case in cognitive psychology. But so there was this, you might hear that and think, oh, I see. Chess experts really are geniuses. They can hold so much more information than everybody else can. But then the researchers did this clever thing, which was all right, that's for a chessboard in the middle of a chess game.
Right.
Chess experts are really good at that. But what if we just put the chess pieces around the board randomly
Mhm.
and see if they can reconstruct that. And now what you see is the novices are still remembering like 4 pieces because they didn't have any prior knowledge about chess anyway.
Right.
They don't even know if something's a real or a fake chessboard.
Right.
But the chess experts, their memory performance suddenly starts looking not very different from novices.
Right.
They, instead of being able to remember like 20 chess pieces, they're remembering like 4 or 5 chess pieces. And what is happening is that chess experts know an incredible amount about chess. And they can look at a board and be like, this chessboard is right in the middle of this particular play, and the queen is right there. And so I will just remember not where these 6 pieces are, but that play is happening, or that gambit. I don't know chess words.
I have no
I would do
idea
bad.
either. Gambit
I would do
sounds
bad at this task.
Sounds great.
It was the name of that Netflix show.
That's true.
And so, and so you see that like what's going on with chess experts is not that their brains are better, but that their chess knowledge allows them to hold more chess pieces in mind if they're in meaningful configurations that they have stored in long-term memory. And you can see this just in regular everyday life. Like if I gave you a string of 16 words and asked you to repeat them back to me, you would never be able to do that if it was random words. But if instead I said a sentence to you that was something like, this morning I was worried about missing the bus, and so I took my car instead. You might be able to repeat that back to me. That was 16 words. This morning I was worried about missing the bus, and so I took my car instead. But because it's a meaningful sentence, like the idea of a particular limit is less important because you're using your knowledge about the situation I'm describing to kind of hold that in a different way in your mind.
So what happens when a person is overloaded in the real world, and then we'll apply the movie's logic to it?
Right. They suffer an increasing amount of brain damage and fog. The experience is, which is interesting, the experience is just like confusion.
Yeah.
Like when you're in a classroom or you're trying to learn something and somebody's moving too fast, the experience isn't like, okay, I'm efficiently processing things at the pace I can, and I'm missing a little bit because it's too fast. Instead, it's like everything just becomes a little confused. Like if I give you 5 letters to repeat back to me, you would do it fine. If I give you 7 letters to repeat back to me, you'd probably do it mostly fine. If I give you 15 letters to repeat back to me, it's not like you're going to do the 7 that you could have done and then forget the rest. You do like the first 2 or 3 and then you lose it because everything is just kind of mixed up in there.
Right.
And so the result of that is that like in a classroom, it means you're not learning because you are experiencing working memory overload. You need the space in your mind to not just hold the information, but make connections between what are the most important parts of the information, how do they relate to each other. And without capacity to do that, it's just going to be kind of passing by you. Like at best, you will be skimming the surface of what is being said, but not making any sense of it.
So confusion. Okay. Confusion, not necessarily harmful in the real world.
Yeah.
Can have consequences.
I would love to avoid it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It does. I'm not to say that it doesn't have any consequences, right? Yeah. In the movie, though, this overload that Johnny is experiencing. So to back up a little bit for the plot point here, his implant has a maximum capacity of 160 gigabytes, right? Which is not bad in today's amount. Like back in 2021, perfectly reasonable amount for some kind of thumb drive, if you will.
That's right.
Your phone might have only had like 128 gigabytes on it, right? So
That's
not
right.
bad, right? Not bad.
Yeah.
And in the beginning of the movie, he had like 80 gigs, and then he had to delete those 80 gigs to be able to do this. And maybe that was his childhood that he so longingly wants.
Yeah.
But the size of the file that he is being given, which we find out later, sort of halfway through the movie, the big reveal is that it is the cure to NAS, which we'll talk about in a little bit. This nerve attenuation syndrome, which is causing a lot of harm in the world, and the cure is what's needed, but the company that discovered the cure wants to bury it because they're making far more money. It's just, you think about it too hard and you cry deeply for the parallels. But the company does not want to release the cure because they're making far more money with treatment.
Right.
And it's honestly funny how throwaway line that part is, because Spider is like talking to Johnny, and then they like get separated at this clinic where a bunch of the low techs are treating a lot of really advanced NAS patients. And he just like says, oh, they're making a lot of money, $2,000 a treatment or whatever it is. And literally the sound mixing makes him trail off. And I'm like, wait, that's an important plot point. Anyways, digression there. So he has to have this 320 gigabyte thing, right? Which is double the capacity of his implant. And so if we're using the implant as a metaphor for working memory here, he ends up experiencing the drawbacks of overloading his implant, which is degenerative in and of itself, right? Instability. And not only does it cause confusion, but it causes disorientation. It causes him to like start to pass out, and he has to be helped. And so sort of taking that idea of confusion and disorientation and dialing it up to 11.
Right. Imagine if when you talk too fast in class, your students started exhibiting Johnny's symptoms.
Seizing.
That's right.
All of them all at once. That
I mean, honestly, I would appreciate the feedback.
This is going in my portfolio. Yeah, so I mean, he's seizing, although he doesn't seize as much as Jane does with NAS. He has intense headaches, which is sort of metaphorical in a sense, because, you know, too much information could be a pressure thing, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of headaches are because we have tension and pressure in our vascular system in our brains. And then flashes of memory loss. So that could be, you know, the confusion and disorientation that we were talking about, and then a little bit of panic associated with that as well.
Can I ask you? So I'm out of the biopsych game lately. That's kind of cycled out of the stuff I think about on the regular for me.
Sure.
Could you come up with a rationalization of what's going on with nerve attenuation syndrome in the movie?
Look, I gotta run.
Shut up. Give me that muscle relaxant over there, the red one.
It's NAS, right?
Yeah, the black shake. Like half the people on the planet. Let me tell you something so you get this straight. It's not my work that got her this way. My work is clean. Besides, you don't get this from amp jobs. That's just a myth.
So what does cause it?
What causes it? The world causes it. This causes it. This causes it. This causes it. Information overload. All the electronics around you poisoning the airwaves. Technological fucking civilization. But we still have all this shit because we can't live without it. Let me do my work.
So nerve attenuation syndrome is a bit ridiculous. It
seems a bit ridiculous.
What?
It seemed a bit ridiculous.
Yeah. So according to Spider, it is a neurodegenerative disorder, much like, you know, your Parkinson's disease, that gets progressively worse over time, caused by electromagnetic radiation. So anything that emits EMR contributes to this disease. And honestly, from what I was trying to find an analogy for a real disease that exists. And the closest thing that I got was EMR hypersensitivity.
Okay. That's real?
Yes.
But that sounds
like
like conspiracy theory stuff. I didn't know that was real.
There's a big ass but here.
Okay, all right.
An exploration by Rubin and colleagues in 2005, so about 20 years ago, was exploring some of the claims, if you will, of EMR hypersensitivity. Yeah. And they concluded, I think, with a healthy dose of skepticism, right?
Yeah.
Good scientific skepticism, was that either cases were more or less psychosomatic, right? So for anyone not familiar with that term, essentially bodily reactions conjured by the brain, or effects from a nocebo, which is a negative or harmful placebo. So a placebo being something that does not inherently have an effect or properties to produce an effect, But a nocebo is a special type of placebo that is given to things that produce harmful placebo effects. So rather than
so
saying
maybe
harmful
fear mongering about
so
electromagnetic radiation
exactly
is causing people to expect that electromagnetic radiation will cause them harm.
Exactly. Absolutely would be the case for a nocebo.
Mm-hmm.
And I was rewatching this and coming back to 2021, I was just like, wow, what is going on here other than life imitating art? So as folks may know, 2021, we were in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. And in case you did not hear one of the fun conspiracy theories that was going around on and fun in the sense where it's just like you kind of have to shake your head and go, really? Oh man, if I don't laugh, I'm gonna cry.
And fun in the sense that there were a lot of funny jokes about it.
Yeah, there were a lot of funny jokes about it. So the conspiracy theory was that 5G, which is, your basic cellular service these days, but it was hot pipe and fresh in, early 2020, 2021, was causing COVID, was the reason COVID was around, which prompted folks to get vaccinated because, you don't want to get COVID, so you got to go get vaccinated. But the conspiracy theory then extends to the vaccines because the vaccines had government chips in them, and then that would allow them to track you, and you are a dope and a stooge for getting vaccinated because you have now a government tracking chip in your body, all because 5G caused the COVID that you were so worried about.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it needs to be said, and it should go without saying. But just in case you might be listening,
you got to say it,
thinking it, no electromagnetic radiation that is generated by your microwave, by radios, by TVs, your cell phone, even infrared cameras are going to produce the kind of radiation that's going to damage your body.
Mm-hmm.
Everything with a wavelength longer than the color red that we perceive is what is called non-ionizing radiation, which does not impact DNA. In fact, the vast majority of non-ionizing radiation is stopped by your body, by your skin, and the fleshy components of your skin. It's only when you get to wavelengths that are shorter than violet, so ultraviolet, that ionizing radiation becomes a problem. That's why we get sunburns, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's why you shouldn't be in a lab hanging out with gamma radiation, Bruce Banner, because it's going to turn you into. So
that's a true story.
Yes, a very true story. I mean,
okay.
It is a great cautionary tale of not, playing with gamma radiation. So none of that is actually possible. And other than this like hypersensitivity syndrome that I found, there is no evidence that, and of course the CDC, WHO, they all say none of this is harmful. 5G is not going to cause COVID, but I just thought it was amazing. Insert COVID for NAS.
Yeah.
And 5G for what Spider says. It's all the tech, man. It's killing us.
Yeah. I mean, so you're not sold on NAS as a mechanism, as a device. I mean, there are ailments of the modern world, are there not? We ail.
We do ail, yeah. I don't think it's
you
technology.
just don't think it's the... Okay, all right.
There are, but I should walk that back a little bit. Technology is leading to some issues, let's say, right?
Sure.
Whether they are biological or neurological in nature, that remains to be seen. Definitely cognitive. I think you might agree with me on that, right?
Sure.
That technology is leading to some cognitive issues.
Sure. Are you a low tech?
See, the thing with the low techs that bothered me a lot, they were still using techs. And I know the phrase is low and not no.
I hadn't caught that. That's a good point.
So actually, folks, like, I get it. They are low techs. But honestly, they seem to be using the same amount of tech as everyone else.
Right.
And they seem to be suffering from NAS as much as everyone else.
Yeah.
Johnny in his crystal palace on a pedestal, wanting a room in a hotel with room service because he's so over being in the free city of Newark, is so dirty and grungy and everything like that. Seems to be above it all, maybe. Maybe rich people aren't experiencing it, but it's definitely a class allegory. Like, you're not hiding that from me, Gibson.
Yeah.
It's definitely a class allegory. So,
yeah.
But I think what can occur with this kind of backdrop, with this NAS backdrop, is a what I was looking at called mass psychogenic illnesses. Have you heard of these things before?
Yeah, I'm not an expert. Is this like when everybody starts dancing?
Yeah. Although, sort of. I suppose the dancing is not an illness, but like, so, I mean, this could be pretty much anything, but I think tech is part of where Gibson was going. Like, don't fall too far in love with tech because there could be some downfalls here. And so, like, you get a bunch of people who all believe the same kind of things, culturally speaking, have all the same fears about it, and you just get this like mass psychosomatic reaction, which might cause physical symptoms. So it's possible that's what he's alluding to in the story and in the screenplay. But you know,
that's interesting. Makes me want to rewatch the movie, see if that could be an explanation.
I mean, I think that it is from what my understanding of the story is it's meant to be a reckoning with technology.
Yeah.
1980s technology, which is quite different from our current 2025 technology. Yeah. I don't know if Gibson...
1980s because of the original...
Of the original story, yeah.
When was that written?
1981.
Ah. Okay.
Yeah. And the screenplay was finalized in 89, 90, somewhere around there.
Oh.
So, you know, I think there's a lot there. Fun fact about the story, though. NAS is not in the short story. It's only in the movie.
Oh.
Yeah.
What is the
story is complete.
Do you find out what he's holding in his head?
I didn't read the plot of the story.
Ah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But
the story is different.
The story is different. Actually, Jane's character is a person named Molly in the story. And she is more of the heroine. She's more of the action hero. Huh. So they converted that character into Johnny's character being like the action star, because they wanted a vehicle for a blockbuster, and it didn't pan out for them. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
But I wanted to stay on this idea of low techs and the rejection of a technology, because I think you brought up a really good point in our notes, which was that, what's the line between a tool that we can use for thinking and when does it become a replacement for our thinking? In my human memory class, I end my semester material with this very question. Like, when does memory stop being part of us and we offload it to something else? And not to say that Johnny Mnemonic is offloading somebody. Look, he's just a person who has a job, and that job is to carry information that's too sensitive for the internet. The internet is a scary place in 2021, by the way. the VR scene where he's just like, I need a computer.
Yeah.
He's a drug addict. And that's what the internet is. I mean,
and in that way, it correctly predicted 2021.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, absolutely. Abso-friggin-lutely.
I need a Sinologic 16, Sogo 7 data gloves, a GPL stealth module, 1 Birdine intelligent translator, Thompson iPhones.
Password enter. Welcome to BRT Online. Global net selected. What are you doing?
Making a long-distance phone call. Beijing Hotel.
Beijing selected. Access denied. Access granted. Hotel Beijing selected. General account selected.
Fax charges, Suite 2571, 15 January 2021, say 11:15 p.m. to 11:30 p.m.
He'll try to make a move. He'll use his connections on the net.
Narrow the bandwidth. Go low rent.
Online translation?
Translator selected.
Shit. It's just an all-night coffee shop. They were sending the fax to a coffee shop here in Newark.
Local net selected.
Hold it.
Command terminated.
Come on. All the way back to Newark.
Copy world selected.
It's here.
Fax buffer selected.
Part of it's here in the buffer of their fax modem. Nothing but a name. Dr. Alcott. Nothing came through.
Let's go, okay?
No, I'm gonna try something else. A guy called Strike. He runs a board in this sector, owes me a favor. Maybe he can find his doctor for me.
We locked on him. He's using a Sonologic 16 GPL stealth module. Crazy Bob's computer shop, 5326 Sutton Plaza, back room.
Initiate the virus.
Access denied.
Come on, let me in!
Access granted.
Get off my board. You are too hot. You're a hit. Waiting to happen.
You owe me, Strike.
I don't owe you that much.
I could crash you from here, man. Wipe out your entire f***ing board.
Johnny, don't. That's my livelihood.
Stop bullshitting me. I need to know what I'm holding, Strike. Why's the Yakuza after it? Who's Dr. Alcott?
All I know is you got a head full of pharmacon data, and they've hired the Yakuza to get it out.
Pharmacon?
Where do you stand on this topic?
Yeah, I mean, I think about the way that the mind interacts with technology a lot.
Mhm.
And I mean, you know, like we were talking about earlier with the Greeks, that like the technology people used to be afraid of was writing
Mhm.
as this thing that like, if you write something down, it means you don't have to memorize it. And then we're lost. And every new technology, there is always this dual reaction of
Mhm.
this is, I mean, on the one side, this is going to ruin our brains because people aren't going to have to process information the way that I did when I was a kid and when I
Mhm.
was in school. And then on the other side, you see these tech boosters who are like, this technology is going to change everything. That there are these
Yeah.
really hilarious quotes as you go back where it's somebody saying like, this technology will mean that we no longer need teachers and the world will become a global classroom. And the technology they're talking about is like the radio. like we're not going to have schools anymore. There's like a Thomas Edison quote that's like this. And it happens with movies. It happens with
Mhm.
educational film. It happens with all of these things. And none of these things have actually revolutionized education, certainly.
No.
Like despite these new technologies, that there still is the importance of like the human mind processing information.
Mhm.
And even with something like the internet, there's a lot of fear mongering about the internet and like what it'll do to our minds. And you know, like that if you have unlimited access to information, that you won't need to learn anything anymore.
Right.
And you would hear people, you know, like in just like Google search days
Yeah.
of people saying like, maybe we don't actually need to teach students information anymore because they can just Google everything and we just need to teach them how to critically think.
Mhm.
But it turns out that fails because you can't think without something to think about. You do have to learn information in order to do higher level processing on it.
You have
And so-
you have to know what to search for.
You have to know what to search for, right? And like you're not going to have unique insights by just reading things other people have said. That like the kind of integrating process, the building of these knowledge structures that characterize expertise, like the reason why experts like our chess players that we talked about, the reason why experts appear to be able to achieve these incredible feats of cognition are because of this incredibly well integrated knowledge that they have.
Yeah.
That when they see something in their domain of expertise, they are seeing it qualitatively differently than somebody who doesn't have background knowledge, who might be much more focused on just the surface levels of the thing.
And
that like if I give you a statistics problem, you'll look at it and you'll be like, oh, that's a chi-square. Whereas somebody else might look at it and be like, oh, that's a question about the difference between men and women.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, that's a surface feature, but the structure of it is a chi-square.
Yeah, exactly. And I think part of what you're also alluding to is that, especially with the chess masters, is that they've spent all of that time accumulating that knowledge, putting it all together, and that's practice.
Right.
And learning is just practice.
Right.
You gotta be able to put that all together. So you put in
practicing at these increasing levels of challenge that are what get you to these levels of expertise.
Yes. So the movie comes out in 1995, where artificial intelligence is really, I mean, it's a topic, but it's not featured in the movie at all, right? There is no such thing, so far as we know, although there's this weird woman who appears in the mainframe, and she apparently is the mind of one of the founders of the company.
Right.
Very poorly explained. Like I've said for pretty much this entire film, everything is very poorly explained. It's not well established or anything like that.
Yeah.
So we get this woman who's doing this, right? And then I think that's our only little bit of intelligence, right? Artificial intelligence, a dead human. But we've got this inflection point, so to speak, of AI now, or generative AI, or large language models.
Yes.
So what's happening here? What do you see in this inflection point?
Yeah, I mean,
do a rant.
I don't want to be the person who sees the new technology and is like rejecting the written word. and yet it is really hard to look at some of the things that AI can do now and not worry about the way that it interacts with how our minds work. That there is something like the things that we know about learning are, as you say, the way that we become expertise, the way we gain the ability to think at high levels of things is to practice at these increasing levels of challenge. You can't skip the low levels of challenge and get to the high levels of challenge. There's a lot of effortful thinking that you have to do.
Right.
That's one thing that we know is really important. And another thing that we know is really important is that like we don't like the feeling of working hard. That like this comes up all the time, that like learning is effortful.
Yes.
And it is filled with friction.
Yes.
And we learn, like, you know, this is the Bjork's whole desirable difficulties thing, that like when we encounter friction, that forces us to learn more deeply, learn in ways that will help us transfer our knowledge to new situations.
Yes.
But friction sucks.
It does.
It is so nice to not experience. And that we tend to like these experiences of fluency. But fluency is not usually a sign that we are learning a lot, but we mistake it for a sign that we're learning, because when we experience fluency in our minds, usually is when it's a thing that we know really well. That like when you recognize somebody, you're experiencing perceptual fluency. It's like easier to perceive their face because you've seen it before. It's easier to read something if it's about stuff you already have knowledge about. And I worry that AI, because of the way that it like communicates so clearly, it is both causing us to feel like we can skip a lot of the intro level knowledge building that we have to do, and giving us this illusion of fluency as we're going through learning processes where we feel like, oh no, I actually understand this extremely well because I talked to ChatGPT about it for 5 minutes.
And
like, or whatever it is. Because
I agree with you. It is fine. It is
where
very
I'm
quick.
just like, hey, what was the role of this country in this war? And then I get this little answer from ChatGPT, and it's like, okay, cool. And like I have somehow not become an expert in world history through these conversations I keep having with the chatbots.
Right.
And so it's like unfortunately the chatbots are extremely good at intro level college work.
Right.
It is extremely difficult in any intro level class to write a reasonable test question that the machine will not excel at, because in its corpus, it has a whole lot of stuff to pull on for intro level topics.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that I don't totally understand exactly how LLMs can achieve this, but where it does seem to somehow take the structure out of what you're describing. And so that like you can describe a research situation. I'll give it one of my research methods test questions to see how it can do on it. And you describe a research situation. You never use the word mediator, but you say, what's the mediator in this description? And it identifies it, which requires identifying like, what's the independent variable? What's the dependent variable? Like, what's the underlying causal structure of what's being described?
Mm-hmm.
And like, it's not, it's probably worse at those questions than like, what's the definition of a mediator? I'm sure it's much better at those.
Right.
But still, it can like achieve these things that are like, get you through a fair way through your college education.
Yeah.
And so people will say like, oh, we'll just like write better tests that people won't be able to use this for. It's like, no, that doesn't exist. They're like, unless we want to be testing people at like levels that they're not at yet, because you have to be practicing at these increasing levels of challenge, and you can't skip the parts where you're gaining the basic competencies.
Right.
And so I do feel a little bit like I want to join an underground resistance movement with incredible cyberpunk aesthetics.
Yeah, absolutely. Hang out with Ice-T or J-Bone.
100%. And I live in a world where I use not less technology, just different technology that I like better.
Yeah, exactly. Technology that won't produce this NAS, this debilitating disease that afflicts some but not others, even though
that's right.
EMR is all around us.
That's right. But I mean, I worry about that, like it's too easy to avoid learning even at these high levels in a way that like technology couldn't support before and now it can. And it makes being a college professor hard. How are you coping?
Whew, boy, I tell you what. It's a challenge, right? I think what I tend to do is with my students, take what you said and just like distill it down to writing.
Mm-hmm.
And because I teach research methods and stats every year to about, let's just say 15 students, approximately. It varies from year to year, but 15 students. And I tell them that like writing is difficult. I'm not that great of a writer, but I do know that when I compare my writing to your writing, there is going to be a difference because I've been doing it for a lot longer than you. Mm-hmm. And it's okay that you are not at my level. It's okay that you're not there yet because that's part of the learning process. And writing sucks. Some people are just really good at it. You can be envious and jealous of them all you want. Those are motivating emotions to do what? To get better at it. Right. And you cannot let technology slide in there and replace, as you said, that effort. It will not ever replace that effort for you. And you will be stuck at your current level of writing knowledge, whether that matters to you or not. You will be stuck there and you will be forever reliant on communicating with other people in a written way with this piece of technology. Again, you might not care that you will be forever with that piece of technology. Sure. You will be bedfellows. Please write every single thing that I need to write for me for all time. Like some people are okay with that, right? Apple made a whole advertising campaign about Apple Intelligence making your writing sound better because you are an idiot. Right. So
yeah, sure.
So I try to just focus on writing, and I keep telling, and it's odd to say, like, makes me feel better when I see mistakes.
Right. I know. Yeah. I miss the little weird sentence constructions and and I'm finding it, I mean, and my policies aside, which mean business, let's say, for issues. So in my syllabus, I have acceptable uses and unacceptable uses, where unacceptable is like presenting AI generated information as your own, right? Right.
So I'm reading proposal drafts right now for experiments and other studies that my students are going to be doing next semester. I love it when I can use my canned response of wonky sentence structure. This is a sentence fragment, because it means that they wrote it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
right.
And I'm like, okay, phew, that's good.
Yeah.
Not too many of these. You should fix it. But yeah, this is good.
Right. Right. But also the way that you know how to identify that sentence structure stuff is because you had to learn to identify it in your own writing.
Yeah.
Like there's a process that you had to go through, and now they're going through that, and they'll understand how sentences do and don't make sense and are and are not, like, do and do not flow, or whatever the things are that we had to painstakingly learn. And again, like, this sounds so back in my day.
It does.
To say.
Yeah.
But I think the flip side of this is what you were saying about, like, when is it replacing our thinking and when is it a thinking tool? And I do think that there is something that is really hard to communicate well when you're telling a student that they're not allowed to use AI, which is that I think that we can use it just fine when we're operating in our domains of expertise.
Right.
That, like, if I'm writing a paper and I'm stuck on how to express something, I find it useful to give that to Claude and be like, I have this idea here and whatever. And then it's like, can you give me a few different ways that I could try saying this? Do I copy and paste what Claude says? Basically,
all the
never.
time.
I'm often.
I'm just kidding.
I am often mad at it. It is, it often is this experience of having, like, a slightly stupid but very confident assistant.
Yes.
But I do think that it's like having that level of expertise to be able to, like, know what to expect from what good output would look like, to be able to identify when it's doing something weird, when it's not, like, and it feels like what it is doing is helping me think. Like, I notice that I can write a little faster. Like, I don't hit writer's block so much.
Yeah.
Because the kinds of things that would get me stuck in the past, where it's just like, I can't crack this thing that I need to say. And maybe it, like, without AI, the nice thing that I would do is, like, find a colleague who I can chat with a little bit about this thing that I'm having trouble with.
Yeah.
But now, instead of having to bother a colleague, I have this stupid, confident assistant who can give me some thoughts. And often that's enough to kind of get past it. But, like, that discernment to know what output is useful and not was hard earned. And I worry that, like, if we have students replacing their own thinking with AI, if we have companies thinking they can replace interlevel employees with AI, then like, when are we ever going to create new experts? Because we're just skipping that whole part of the pipeline.
Right. I absolutely agree. I do something kind of similar to you, is that, in teaching novices a lot of stuff, especially technical jargon, I find using AI to be very useful in generating analogies for me.
Yeah.
Because the analogies that I create might miss some of the substitution quality that you need for a really good analogy.
Sure.
And to save me some time, I'm like, okay, just generate an analogy for me, because I need to add this to this lecture material. And that has actually come in pretty clutch in a couple of things that even I have struggled with in, like, sensation and perception, like the principle of univariance regarding how a single cone interprets light information. And I got spit out this really great one where it was like, listen, you have a paintbrush and it's a shade of gray, and you're not going to know what color that shade of gray is until more processing occurs. I'm doing the analogy injustice right now, but it was like something approachable to a lot more people. Many people have seen paint, and they have experienced painting and color and paint and all of that stuff. So it was very useful to that. But I think going along with what you're saying about, how it assists with writing, is that I can determine its output as a useful analogy, or be like, no, you know what, go again. That one's not hitting me right here, because I think you're missing the point a little bit. Right. And so, again, a slightly stupid, but confident assistant is a good way of putting it. And a lot of people's thoughts are jumbled, and I get that. My thoughts are jumbled too. It helps to put them down in writing. but put those thoughts down first on your own and then maybe ask for help in organizing them.
This is a graduate student in my lab is doing a project on this, seeing how pre-training people on a topic, kind of giving them some direct instruction in a topic before having them try to learn more with AI versus just setting them free in AI to kind of figure it out for themselves.
Okay.
Like how the instructional support affects what they're able to get out of.
Ooh, I can't wait.
The more self-guided AI
that's
stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think it's a lovely little 2x2. We're also going to have conditions that don't have the AI support to see if AI is adding anything.
Okay.
So,
Ooh, I like that. That's some good stuff. That's some good stuff.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see. Can't wait to see.
It's time to meet Jones. We built heaven completely out of straight world junk, all hauled up here piece by piece. We work with Spider and his people and anybody else who's fighting the system. We out shit for them.
What do you mean, out?
Heaven, heart and soul. This is where we fight back. We strip the little pretty pictures from their 500-channel universe, recontextualize it, then we spit the shit back at them. Special data, things that'll help people, like stuff we get from Spider. We wideband it.
What?
Broadcast it, go global. Bounce it off the satellites that Jones hacks for us. The way the Navy got him hooked up, he cuts through hard encryption like a knife cuts through butter.
Codebreaker. Good. Can't wait to meet him.
Right this way. Jones.
It's a fish.
It's a mammal.
He's a friend, sailor.
This was Spider's best bet?
Hey, one thing Spider wasn't was stupid. Jones has set up the sample software from enemy subs. Infrasound scan. Right through the hull.
We need to end this episode by talking
Yes.
about something very important.
Oh my goodness. It's the elephant in the room.
More like the dolphin in the room, am I right?
The dolphin in the room.
Okay, so there is a lovely little tidbit. Listener, if you're just listening to us rant about AI, we're going to do a little hard pivot here to one of the most ridiculous but lovely, I consider it to be a lovely surprise. A character named Jones is referenced in as we approach the last third of the film. And Johnny's like, great, let's go see Jones. I need to get this stuff out of my head. And in that exact cadence.
That's right.
And everyone's like, yeah, you go see, we'll take you to Jones. It'll be great. Jones is apparently a member of the low-tech, I guess, resistance, as we'll call them. And we get to where Jones is headquartered. And it turns out he is what?
One of the most thrilling reveals of my life. Jones is a dolphin in a tank on a desk. He is
A tank on a desk.
he's an animatronic puppet, barely animatronic. He's just in the tank is the size of Jones.
Yeah. He lives a terrible life. Let's be honest.
Yeah. This is what Blackfish was about. The documentary that came out on Netflix in the aughts. It was a big expose. Yeah, he's got some kind of a cybernetic brain implant situation or something kind of suggested by something mounted.
Helmet. One of his eyes is like a protruding camera.
About the eye. Yeah. I love Jones so much. This actually, this is extremely not about psychology, but this did lead me to create what is my favorite letterboxed list I've ever created, which is third act puppet reveal.
I'm gonna have to go find that.
It is a list with 4 movies in it so far. And Johnny Mnemonic was the first one. Yeah, so far I have Johnny Mnemonic. And not to spoil anything about these movies, but there are third act puppet reveals. Sorry to Bother You, the Boots Riley movie that came out a few years ago.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's right. Beau is Afraid, which I will not say more about because this is a family podcast. And Frankenhooker, which I just saw, and I can't avoid saying the name of that one, despite it being a family podcast. And this is my new favorite movie trope. I'm sure if I knew more about dolphin intelligence, we could talk about.
I think it works. They're
Sure.
a highly intelligent animal. I think that's
and
fairly
a mysterious
common
non-human intelligence.
Yes.
That we know that they're so intelligent, but we don't know what it's like to be a dolphin.
And while we do not interact with Jones in the movie in any meaningful way, as the audience, it's sort of just like this passive. He apparently is talking, but we hear dolphins squeaking, and that's it.
Yeah.
Chirping, song, however they're referred to, but really that's it. That's all we get. He speaks through Ice-T.
Yes. What I would love to see is a series of Jones sequels. I want the whole Jones franchise. Oh, and this is where. So I was Googling Jones.
Yeah, so we have some fun facts about Jones. You do yours, and then I'll do mine.
Oh, great. Yeah. So my fun fact is that about 10 years ago, there was one of these prop auctions, and the original Jones prop, this incredible dolphin animatronic, sold for an estimated $500 at auction, and that is not enough money, in my opinion. I was trying to. I was having this conversation. I think that I myself, as a person who is not a collector of movie props, I think that I would have paid $2,000 for Jones. I think that my personal valuation for me of Jones is $2,000. And I would think there's somebody out there who would pay much more than that. But if you have the Jones prop and you're willing to sell it for $2,000 and you're listening to this podcast, please reach out.
Oh, man. I would love it if Jones was purchased by a collector who has a bunch of other movie props and just has their own personal museum of movie props.
Yeah. I hope they know what they've got,
They probably do. And they were probably like, yes, I got this on a super steel.
Do that in the Keanu voice. Maybe it was him.
Maybe it was Keanu. My fun fact about Jones is that in the short story, Jones was a heroin addict.
Wait, was he also a dolphin?
Dolphin, yes. A dolphin with a heroin addiction.
Oh.
And I mean, I think central to his characterization, but you got to think to yourself, how does a dolphin do heroin?
Such a good question.
I think it's a very empirical question. Whether or not it's an ethical question is...
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, it is an ethical question. Whether or not it is ethical to do,
Sure.
unlikely. But
yeah.
Robert Longo, who directed the film, did not include that detail after going back and forth with Gibson on it, because to my immediately earlier point here, how do you show that, right?
Yeah.
Movies are supposed to show, not tell. You can't just casually say, oh, yeah, we rescued him from so-and-so place. He's a member of our low-tech community. Oh, also, he's a recovering heroin addict.
That's right.
What a line for Ice-T to say. So they just casually cut that out.
Okay.
So he could just be the tech savior and get the information out of Johnny's head.
Sure.
That's a spoiler alert. They get the stuff out of his head, and he's all
Oh, there
fine.
we go. Happy ending.
Yeah, it's a very happy ending for a dystopian future. A little too happy, don't you think?
Yeah, sure.
A lot of people died, sure. Now, if you are interested in watching this movie, you can get the black and white version. Did you have a chance to procure that?
No, it's not streaming anywhere right now.
No,
it has
it's
in the
not.
past, but I think you got to buy it on Blu-ray right now.
Yeah, you got to buy it on Blu-ray, which is unfortunate. Come on, Sony.
Yeah.
Get your act together.
Yeah.
I want to thank Dr. Celeste Pilegard for joining me to discuss Johnny Mnemonic. Before we say goodbye, Celeste, is there anything that you would like to share with the listeners? Where can folks find more about the work that you do?
Sure. I mean, when I was on this podcast 25 years ago in its first year of run,
exactly,
I plugged an OER cognitive psychology textbook that I had just finished putting together that fall. That textbook is now in its second edition.
Awesome.
I got some internal grant funding to hire a team of graduate students to update the chapters with more recent citations, more recent scientific knowledge. It now has an ISBN in case your institution requires it. And so that is at pilegard.github.io/cogfoundations.
Nice.
If you search cognitive foundations in my name, you'll find it.
I would love to link that in the show notes.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, we're hosted on GitHub now.
Oh, nice.
It's a
Yeah.
big move for the textbook. Yeah. And I help run a conference on teaching statistics and research methods in psychology called Psych Terms. And we meet once every year in December to chat about the practical things that you can do in your classes in order to keep your statistics and research methods instruction kind of effective and up to date and evidence based and with current best practices. And so we've been doing that for a little while now. And our 2025 meeting will be December 10th and 11th.
Yes, this episode will be going out before that. And importantly, it is a free.
It is free, yeah. Free and virtual.
Virtual conference I attend every year. I don't think I've had anything any year, but because it's free to attend, I just go and I look because I teach research methods and stats every year. So it's always useful.
Yeah. When you do the thing where you go to a conference and then you like skip some of the sessions because you feel like doing something else, you're not losing any money. And I think that's important.
Exactly. Yes. Or, because it's virtual, you can have the thing open and then you're doing one other thing off to the side.
Right. It's finals week for most of us. So there's a lot of off to the side that's got to be going on.
But that is not to say that it is any less valuable. It is absolutely a wonderful thing that the UC, the University of California faculty, including Celeste, put together with, I think, the help of some sponsors, right?
That's right. We get a little bit of money from American Psychological Association and their Psych Learn product. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. So I will link those two things in the show notes in case you are interested in peeking at those two things. Thanks again for joining me, Celeste. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Alex. Always such a pleasure to get to spend a little time chatting with you.
Indeed. And that's going to do it for this episode. Until the next one, thanks for listening.